Future of work. I certainly don't have all the answers. Nobody ever does. If anyone says they do, they're lying. For me, this area of change that we're going through around culture and technology and how people and systems work is one of those classic areas where we're overestimating in the short term and underestimating in the long term, because I think there are some seismic changes coming. So what do? We accelerate business growth. So we do this through helping organizations with their digital transformations, their people and their technology. We are at our heart a technology company ourselves, and we build platforms and systems that accelerate change inside organizations. This is a classic example of how I did slides in Keynote that then got transferred into PowerPoint. Me, a 48-year-old guy, and a young man over there sitting on our knees in the corner of the room collaborating on how we might make this technology work in real time. I think that's probably the future of work for most of us. Hence, you'll see lots of double repeats if you can read those slides. What have we done? We've worked with 40,000 frontline staff in 11 countries, fundamentally about building their confidence in technology. We have a very strong view about a digital economy for all, which for businesses has to start with their existing workforce as well as their new. But there is also a fundamental connection between your talent and your customers. Most large organizations have forgot the best sales route to their customers is via their people, not via above the line or real-time digital marketing. We work very heavily in head offices as well, 2,000 people in head offices to help them adapt to ways of working with new technology as systems are developed. And we're a B Corp. So for every hour of training that we're funded by our customers, we'll train a young person for free. So we've trained over 3,500 young people in the last 3 years, giving them technology skills that we think helps them make them more employable. And we've now moved, as the model, as Donna was saying, is becoming much more dynamic. We're moving into the apprenticeship schemes, and we're running 2 really interesting models, one inside Dentsu Aegis, a big global advertising network, and one inside the National Lottery organizer, Camelot, to help their businesses change from the inside. And I can talk a little bit about that as we go. So here are 4 thoughts. People and tech, profit and purpose, or purpose and profit, because I think it's that way around, ecosystems, tasks, and the levy and transformation. So I'm going to whiz through these so I don't get red carded. We're very lucky in that we do work with some really fantastic people, and I asked a couple of people to give me some thoughts on what work should look like or could look like in the future, and what's the impact of technology. So I'm hoping this video now works in this new form. Let's just press this button and see. There we go.
New tech destroys old jobs and creates new ones. It is not 100% clear if the people whose jobs are destroyed are capable of doing the new ones. And therein lies the challenge. And that's retraining people to do new work.
The jobs that exist inside Facebook today, most of those didn't exist, 3 years ago. You couldn't have gone to college for a job you wanted at Facebook, 4 years ago and gotten that job. That job changed. My first job at Facebook no longer exists. It's kind of been automated away.
I think young people don't realize how powerful they are. You are the future market, you are the future workforce, and all of these companies are sort of tripping over themselves to sort of figure out how you think, what you like. I think one of the key things that young people need to understand is how powerful you are, and also how you going in with your ideas and your understanding of how your peers think and work is really a huge asset. So I think just having that confidence, but also being able to communicate that.
So a couple of big themes on there I'm going to pick up. So there's a lot at the moment around technology destroying jobs. And let's be honest, there was a report on the radio this morning about the fact that the generation that's coming into the workplace now is probably the last generation that will earn more than their parents did. There is a reality that's facing society and large-scale employment. If you're a bank and you're employing 130,000 people, there's no way in the future you will be employing that number of people. So there is a reality check that's coming. But absolutely what's also fundamental is picking up on some of the points previously made, that this is about people and technology. This is about understanding the power that people have with technology, not just how technology is replacing people. And one of our key points for that, which I think is a really interesting point to start, is around mindset. Lots of people talk about skills. I haven't looked at a single apprenticeship framework that has anything in it about mindset. It's all about practical skills. It's all about coding and building. And actually, the Lego bricks of the internet, fundamentally, we all need heavyweight coders if we're doing back-end work, but most front-end development work can be done by people who have a very basic understanding of coding, because actually it's about copy and paste a lot of the time. So we do a huge amount around mindset. A mindset sounds like a really fluffy word. What does it mean? How do you define it? Which is exactly what we've done. We think it is a way of operating. It can be learned. We help CEOs and frontline staff, whatever age, whatever generation, understand how they can think and act more digitally, how they can be more confident. A lot of life is about how confident you are, and we think we can absolutely make that happen. And we have a model, a framework called Mindset, Skills, Behavior. And if you get those three things done, then you'll get an impact. And we're developing, we have a tracking tool that manages all of this in real time. There's a classic example of poor formatting between technologies. But mindset's crucial for us. And we're finding it, having worked with 40 to 50,000 people now around the world, that actually it's some soft skills. It's things like empathy. It's things like having an interest in the people you work with, having curiosity in your life, being interested to understand people's perception of you. The whole idea around mirroring, for example. We spend a lot of time with companies and we look at all of their data sets, and the one bit of data they have least access to, even the digital startups, is the data about their people. It's the one bit the organization doesn't spend enough time thinking about and tracking and understanding. And you can train these things, you can teach them. You absolutely can work with people and change their confidence levels around technology, and they can then have a different conversation with their customers about it. We've proven the quickest route to encourage customers to install mobile apps in the financial services sector is to get a branch staff to talk to the customer about the technology. It's not about marketing, it's not about cost per click acquisition, it's about a human being talking to a human being about a piece of technology that's very likely to take that first human being's job away at some point. Because less footfall into branches, less staff. That's a clear equation the sector understands. But actually, it's what are those human conversations going to be in the future, I think is a really important challenge. Here's an example of some work we did, which I thought might be interesting to hear. I think also what I picked up this morning around collaboration as a city. Barclays overall is a bit like probably the working digital population within Brighton, tens of thousands of people. We ran a program with them called Digital Eagles. What was fascinating about this is a large-scale employer accepting the digital economy, accepting disruption and saying, how do we become the most digital bank that exists? So their Digital Eagle program is world-renowned. They've fundamentally taken thousands of their staff who now don't talk to customers about the banking products. They talk to them about how to use Facebook. They have labs in their branches where they can print in real time using 3D printing an artificial limb for a child at a third of the price as the National Health Camp. They're a bank, but they've clearly said we want to be part of people's lives, which again is a really interesting, I think, challenge for business is what is the role that you're playing in your customers' lives, and Barclays are very clear about that. Their market cap, their market share has risen. They are very clear this sort of strategy has led them to business growth. It's not a CSR strategy, it's a fundamental growth strategy, which is, again, really important. Ecosystems and tasks, I think, is a fascinating area. We do a lot of work with companies about what is meaningful work. So lots of large organizations have done 3 phases, and I know this having run a couple of big businesses myself. You do the first phase, which is fundamentally about outsourcing, cost-cutting, digitizing existing systems. Second phase was always about market growth, market actions towards new customer bases, omni-channel marketing, new products and services. Third phase of digitalization is fundamentally, how's everyone going to act digitally? How are we going to understand the real-time data around us? How are we going to employ the right talent in the right ways? And there's a generation of talent coming through now. There are no careers left, let's be honest. My generation is probably the last one that can have a career. I spent almost 20 years in 2 bursts of 10 at The Guardian before I became the MD. Since then, I've worked in 6 places in 4 years. So I got to this late, but there are people who are coming through, so there are no careers. There's no long-term employment, it's gone. So what do you do? What's meaningful in your life about work? Who's got a side hustle? Put your hand up if you've got a side hustle. Anyone know what a side hustle is? If you haven't got a side hustle, you need to find one. A side hustle is something you do in your spare time that's as important as the work you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So it could be a passion you have, whether you're an arts trustee, working in a youth club, something that you can use your work skills in and develop yourself. So many young people that we work with and employ have side hustles. So most of the people we work with have got at least another job. Not because they need the money necessarily, but because they want that influence and stimulation in their life. So how do you define it and how do you deliver it? There is fundamentally a move to less large company employment, which I think is a good thing for smaller organisations, potentially like some in this room, that there is more self-employment. Our business model is networked. We have a core number of people. We're growing at 80% a year. We have a core bench of staff, but actually we network. You know, we're running programs in Dubai and New York at the same time, and we're 30 people because we're working with a network of talent that we found. And that will mean more self-employment. At the moment, interestingly, I think that Donald's point about Germany, Mittelstand, having spent some time in Germany, is a fascinating example of how smaller, family-based organisations that haven't outgrown their regional market are the majority of employment and economic growth in that area. The moment self-employment is either seen as something that young people didn't consider it because they wanted to work for a big company because the systems fuel them that way, or it's got a bad name because of Uber and those sorts of gig economies. But I think we're going to see more and more self-employment coming, despite this government's attempts very recently to make it very difficult for people who are self-employed to make a good living. Access to talent on demand is going to be significant. We spend a lot of time with big organisations who want tasks done. And we know all the employment platforms that now exist that allow you to find talent on demand and to get tasks done in real time, whether that talent is living in Europe or wherever else around the world. And it's certainly a model we use very heavily. A lot of our creatives, for example, are in the Philippines, because actually there's a really good digital creative hub in the Philippines that you wouldn't know unless you went to try and find it. Okay, I'm now going to... There we go. And then the other thing we hear a lot, starting to hear a lot from large organisations, is about the fact that they want to become ecosystems. They want, and there was an Accenture report out this week actually which reinforced that, they know they can't justify employing tens of thousands of people anymore. They know that they can't block out small partners and competitors and make it difficult to work with them. They know they've got to become a connection point between their customers and their lives and products and services. And not all those products and services will be developed by those businesses, which again I think is a really interesting change. It's going to be slow happening, but I think it allows collaboration in a way that we've never seen before, because it was competition and then it was coepetition or whatever that language was, and now I think it's going to be much more about ecosystems, which again I think is a really good thing. So anything you can do to drive that forward is a good idea. Next point is about profit and purpose. Stakeholders, not shareholders, I think is a really, really important way we should think about how we run our companies. It can't just be about shareholder return. It's got to be about the value you're adding to society, the value you're adding to your staff while you have them and your customers' lives. And if you start with who are our stakeholders and how do we add value to that, then I think you'll end up with a much more meaningful organisation that will have a longer-term competitive advantage. It's interesting to see the number of large-scale organisations that either float too early or get bought too early, and then the original team have to go and start it up again because it didn't really quite deliver what they wanted. This is our one, which you absolutely cannot read. So this is our social impact model. It's at the heart of our organisation. It's essentially how we find young talent and move them through our philosophy and how we work really with we've called it transitional labour, so it's young people. We do a lot of work with the military, and we also do work with lots of large frontline staff bases in retail and leisure and banking to help them understand their digital futures. But we're very clear. We understand our impact at different points. We have targets against it. It's part of the reason why people invest in our business, and it's as important to us as our gross margin. So we've got one or two numbers we look at. One is gross margin, one will be impact. And those two things are absolutely equally important to us. So if you haven't got one, I really would encourage you to build one and use your people to help you build it. So apprentices. We've never been involved in apprenticeships. I am not an educationalist. I've employed thousands of people over the years, always believe that business should have an impact on society and leave it in a better place. There is absolutely an incredibly negative view about the role of business in society, particularly large companies. There's a lot of trust lost. So how do you encourage young people to get involved in business? I think your absolute point, £40,000 worth of debt, and I'm now going to work in retail on a 0 hours contract. What is the point of that outside of drinking myself stupid for the first 18 months, which is fun but in an expensive way. You can do that once you're earning. So we've moved into the apprenticeship model, but we've approached it differently. So we work inside organisations as opposed to let them just give us that young person once a month for a bit of learning. We're embedded inside an organisation. Let me play you a very quick film just to bring that alive.
One of the biggest challenges for companies in the next 10, 15 years is reaching 16 to 25-year-olds, i.e. their future customers.
We work with companies who need help supporting the mindset and the culture within themselves, and we also provide new ways of working and new ways of planning and thinking as an organisation.
The Academy is all about injecting young, diverse, fresh talent into the heart of organisations and putting them on a 12-month Academy programme. And what that will do for the young people is take them on a really long, immersive learning experience to kind of upskill them. And what it will do for the business is it will bring in fresh, new, innovative talent and get a different lens to a whole new range of audiences.
From my experience at university, it was very much theory-based, so we were never actually able to implement the skills that we learned.
They will meet the best in play in their field, from content creators to bloggers to artificial intelligence, to enable them to have the best experience.
We've actually been able to take on what we're learning and apply it to real-world practices.
A huge part of this programme is not only developing them, but developing Camelot as an organisation. So everything they do is going to be shareable content. We will be developing ourselves as their programme develops as well.
If you work out these important issues for big companies and you get young people coming up with their creativity and energy to solve them, and you devise a really strenuous 12-month programme to do that, then everyone wins.
And I think our view around this opportunity is it is a once in a generational chance to do a couple of things that haven't been done well enough, particularly by larger organisations, which is have a diverse workforce that reflects the society that they're operating in or their customer bases. It's still particularly, and it's easy to say at a senior level, but particularly at most levels of large organisations, they don't look like their customers, and they can't think like their customers because they're not their customers in that sense. And we've done a lot of interesting work, certainly inside Dentsu, where we launched an ad agency just run by young people on our academy schemes. That clash between different cultures and different perspectives ends up with better creative solutions, which we're finding really interesting for brands to want to work with. But we think that it takes management. One of the problems with the existing systems is that young people were being given relatively interesting skills, but really not very interesting work whilst they were doing apprenticeships. Whereas we're absolutely putting them inside organisations with very structured programs so that everyone they work with is impacted by the work that they're doing. It's really difficult though, and I can't talk about it that openly because they're customers of ours, but it's really painful for the big organisations we're working with, because a lot of their management staff go, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to work with people like that. Why does he never turn up on time? But why is he emailing me at 11 o'clock at night having done the work that I asked him to do the day before? Why doesn't he dress like we do? Those sorts of, which sound ridiculous, but actually they're real points. These are real people who are trying very hard, who've got very great skills, but they're really struggling to manage a different generation that is different, because this is a very digital generation that's growing up with a different attitude, and we need to reflect that and respect it. And that's hard in organisations that are quite linear in how they think about themselves. You guys are much more innovative than that, but it isn't easy, and it does take management and facilitation. So I do think it's a real chance for innovation and collaboration, and I do think you should get together and launch your own digital academy in the city of Brighton. You have the opportunity to use the levy. I haven't met, just to counteract Donald, I haven't met a single large company that wants to share their levy with any small company. Absolutely not. They would rather spend the levy on their existing staff in training. So I don't believe there's going to be a trickle down, certainly not initially. But there is levy funding there. And if you collaborate together and run your own academy, and we'd be very happy to help in whatever way that was needed, I think you could create a really interesting young powerhouse for digital talent here in the city of Brighton, which could compete with the big programs that are being developed by some of the larger employers like IBM and Microsoft, which they're doing on their own. There's no reason why you couldn't do that together. That's it for me. I hope that was interesting, not too over there with large companies, but any questions? My email on, there's my Twitter account. Thank you very much.
Just to summarise there were, is this working okay? Yeah. There were 3 great essays there, you know, like some insights. I always look at my notes. If I take notes, it's a good speech, and I've got lots of them here. Side hustles, stakeholders, not shareholders, social impact, of course, the apprenticeship thing, and AI, interestingly. You know, is it like the god Shiva? Will it destroy jobs, or will it create jobs? What's going to be the net total there? But any questions for Adam while he's here, and I will give you the mic on any of those topics or any other topic. Zilch.
Did you disagree with what I said? Hey. Tell me I'm an idiot. Do something.
Here we are. Hold on.
I like your description, the social hustle. Do you think that your side hustle should sit alongside your productive paid employment? Do you think it should feed into community and into a broader concept of citizenship? How do you see that evolving?
I think it's a very individual thing what the side hustle is. So I think as employers you can encourage it by recognising that actually why can't people do that? You know, Google's always had its day for personal development, which generally they now use most of the time on work. We're testing a 4-day week, giving people a Wednesday to do something completely different if they've delivered all of the work that had to get done over the 4 days, because we want to see what impact that has. So I think you just have to have an experiment around these things. So I think one, accepting it happens, encouraging it, and getting people to talk about it and share, supporting it if it helps your organisation. I think it's hard to tell. I think a lot of them are because of the nature of the people that we work with. A lot of them do have a broader impact on society because they're doing things with their friends that they care about that have a social impact. I see a lot in the young people we employ. There is I'm going to grow myself, you know, I want to earn a living. I can't afford to buy a house. I'm always going to rent. So actually, I'd like to do some other stuff that gives me some excitement in life around helping other people.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. I just wanted to know about an issue that you touched on, which is about sort of strategy and systems and how that interfaces with people and behaviours. And I wondered if you can elaborate a bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. I think without getting into the heavyweight impacts of AI on day jobs and all that amazing opportunity, all that real-time data, if you think like a digital organisation, you'll spot. But we spend a lot of time. What's fascinating for me, people at work tend to come into the office and turn their digital heads off. So you sit with people and you say, well, do you know how to program the television? Yes. Okay. Can you show how to use Facebook to your grandparents? They go, yeah, I can do all of that. Do you know how to set up a mobile phone quickly? So, yeah, I can do all that. So why, when your tech stops working, do you dial 444 and get the IT help desk? Why at work? So why has the company just trained you to stop thinking for yourself? So with a lot of cloud-based tools, we're finding as organizations go to cloud-based communication tools, for example, they come off Lotus Notes and Microsoft and go into Google, people really struggle with that. They go, oh my God, I can't log in like I used to be able to log in. Well, you've got a Gmail account at home, haven't you? Yeah, I've got one. Well, it's no different. So there's just it sounds really obvious, but there is just a little bit around sharing those experiences and getting people to understand it. And we found a lot of peer-to-peer learning is much more powerful than sitting and watching a video. Is actually people who. So that's why we use the advocacy model, so that all of our learning is ultimately we help people teach other people, because that's much more powerful. So that I'm not sure if I answered that specifically, but.
It was a bit of a throwaway comment you made, possibly.
Probably.
Basic understanding of coding is basically just copy and paste on the application end.
That sounds like a throwaway comment, doesn't it?
Yes. But a couple of interesting things struck me. Firstly, that this seems to be a prime area for AI to replace people in that respect, in terms of code generation.
Yep.
And secondly, in terms of the issue for those of us in the sort of college sector about what software development skills we actually should deliver to support you now.
Yeah, well, that's a fascinating question, isn't it? And it was a slightly glib comment, but we can teach people in an hour and a half to build an app. You know, it isn't. There are plenty of systems that allow you to do that. Let's face it, we still need computer science specialists with heavyweight machine learning experience and ability to build that. My problem with the education sector is that by the time you come out of it, probably what you've learned is no longer relevant. So Python, let's be sure, Python has already changed a number of times and is going to carry on changing again. So we spend a lot of time helping people become self-learners. So we think we're in an age of knowledge streaming, not knowledge storing. You can access everything. You just got to learn how to look for it and then understand when you find it how to practice yourself. And I'm obviously not saying that the education sector is no longer relevant, because of course it absolutely is. But I do think there's a change coming around that idea of self-learning. And we are seeing it inside large organisations. If you get your culture right, that it becomes a self-learning culture, you can innovate more quickly than your competitors. So some of the Barclays best digital initiatives have come from branch staff who have had no idea how to build anything. They had a rudimentary understanding because we gave that to them, but they understood the customer's problems and they had some brilliant ideas and they could prototype it. And then someone else went and built it. But actually that innovation came from the shop floor much, much more quickly than someone sitting in a central IT department or someone sitting in Canary Wharf who's so far away from the customers. Because a lot of, for me, a lot of digital opportunities, a lot of the transformations we're all going through about how do you get much more customer-centric, much more people-centric, because that's where the business opportunities are. I think there is a challenge, and I think the levy, as we sit here in an amazing institution, and I'm really excited about everything you do here, is a fundamental challenge to the higher education sector. Because, so many large organisations are saying, well, we'll just fund it ourselves, we'll just do it ourselves, we'll guarantee the quality of the talent, we don't want graduates. We hire people into our programme, we never look at their CVs. I have no idea whether they're a graduate or not. No idea.